Welcome to Key Shapes for Strings Fingerboard Geography Mastery. This video deals with rapid fingerboard key pattern and hand shape mastery and understanding tetrachord shapes and the tetrachord cycle. What are the key components that make major scales unique? Each letter is used once. There are half steps between 3, 4, and 7, and 8. Tetrachords are half-scale units, any 4 notes in a row within a scale pattern. Within any major key, each tetrachord will have a half step either within it or just beyond it at both ends. The location of that half step can be used as a name for that shape. The advantages of learning basic tetrachord patterns and the tetrachord cycle include establishing excellent left hand and wrist position early on, establishing muscle memory that makes it faster and easier to play correct notes within any key, relating your hand shape on the fingerboard to scale and key patterns more easily, gaining comfort with playing in any key, gaining comfort with playing in any position. When there is a half step from 3 to 4, we can call it a 3/4 tetrachord. And with violin and viola right now, these are also fingertips touching, not so with cello and bass. We'll get to that later. A 2/3 tetrachord is 4 notes in a row that have the half step between the second and third note of the tetrachord. A 1/2 shape has the half step between the first and second note of the tetrachord. And when all the notes within the tetrachord are a whole step apart, we can call it a 4/1 tetrachord, since it will have half steps beyond it at both ends. These 4 patterns make up nearly all of the tetrachord patterns in Western music. For violinists and violists, the name of the tetrachord is the location of the fingertips that will be touching. Cellists have only 3 notes in the hand, bassists only 2. They will need to convert tetrachord shapes to fingerings with shift patterns. Try playing each of the tetrachords with these suggested fingerings. Beginning tetrachord finger patterns for violin and viola. In the diagram below, each circle represents a fingertip location. The circles are a half step apart. For the violin and viola hand shapes, they're the same as the tetrachord name. For cello and bass, fingering and shifting patterns will be explained soon. The 3/4 tetrachord, the fingertips 3 and 4 will be touching for violin and viola. For the 2/3 pattern, fingertips 2 and 3 will be touching, a whole step from 1 to 2 and from 3 to 4. For the 1/2 pattern, fingertips 1 and 2 are a half step apart, so they'll be touching. In the 4/1 pattern, all 4 fingers are a whole step apart, and the next note going up or down is a half step beyond the fingers within the pattern. For cello bass, cello shifting suggests on these patterns a consistent pattern of shifting from the first finger to the 4th finger. With the bass, you're going to shift to a half step beyond the 4th finger. Keeping those shifts in mind, for a 3/4 tetrachord, the cello fingering is going to be 1/3, shift, then 2/3. For the basses, it's 1/4, shift, 2/4. With a 2/3 tetrachord pattern, cello fingering 1/3, shift, 1/3, basses 1/4, shift, 1/4. For the 1/2 tetrachord pattern for cellos, that same shifting, it's 1/2, shift, 1/3. For basses, 1/2, shift, 1/4. And for the 4/1 tetrachord, the cellos are going to have a same shift pattern with 1/3 and then shift and 2/4. The basses are going to shift a half step further and do 1/4, shift, 1/4. Once these patterns are comfortable, players should explore new shift and finger patterns for any of the instruments, but especially cello and bass. Cellists and bass players, please note the fingerings suggested for these beginning tetrachord exercises are to help you begin to move out of first position. They should be replaced by traditional fingerings as soon as you're comfortable with the note locations within each tetrachord shape. For cellists, shift priorities are usually to shift the shortest distance possible or to shift up to the first finger to have the rest of the hand available above. For basses, shift priorities are usually to never land on the finger you just left. Discovering the tetrachord cycle. Major scales have a half step at 3, 4, and 7 and 8. A tetrachord can start on any note. When we look at a successive tetrachords over 4 octaves, we discover a cycle that has many helpful applications in sight reading and technique development. Here's a universal 4-octave major scale pattern. So just identifying half steps at 3, 4, and 7 and 8. What is the shape of the tetrachord starting on Do, the first note of this scale pattern? Well, it's a 3, 4. Let's continue our way through the rest of the cycle. Moving on up, the next tetrachord, again a 3, 4. The next tetrachord going to be a 2, 3. The next one is 2, 3 again. The next one is a 1, 2. The next one is another 1, 2. And the final one in the cycle is a 4, 1. On all strings and in all positions, you are always somewhere within this cycle. 3, 4, 3, 4, 2, 3, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 4, 1. Learning the cycle is easy. Using the cycle is very helpful. Practice the naturally occurring tetrachord pairs. Moving straight across from lower to upper, play any of the following pairs. Initially, it might be a good idea to start on first finger F on the D string, so you'd be in second position. And that way, folks of all 4 instruments can be playing at the same time and a little bit out of their comfort zone. So if you look at tetrachord pairs, you can either have 3, 4, 3, 4, or 3, 4, 2, 3, or 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 4, 1, or 4, 1, 3, 4. Please note, bass players, when you go to the upper string, you're going to have to start up a whole step from where you were on the lower string. The tetrachord pairs going up on one string for the tetrachord cycle, you can use the same pairs, but once you're used to going across 2 strings, try shifting through the lower tetrachord and then playing the upper tetrachord for violins and violas just as you would as it's printed there with 3, 4 half step or 2, 3. A tetrachord is 4 notes in a row anywhere within the scale. Tetrachords can be labeled by the location of the half step within the tetrachord. For most music, there are only 4 tetrachord shapes. 3, 4, a 2, 3, a 1, 2, or a 4, 1. There is a cycle of tetrachords. 3, 4, 3, 4, 2, 3, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 4, 1. It's a naturally occurring cycle. At all times, you're somewhere within that cycle. Anytime you're playing in major or natural minor, at all times you're within that cycle. It's only when you get to the less common scales that things sometimes go a bit drift from this. On all strings and in all positions, you are always somewhere within this cycle. Learning the cycle is easy. Using it is very helpful. Next, learn to play all 4 tetrachord shapes on each string and in several positions. Learn to play all 7 tetrachord pairs moving across any pair of strings on your instrument. Learn to play all 7 tetrachord pairs, moving up any string by shifting through the lower tetrachord. View the Key Shapes Worksheet intro video and begin filling out a Key Shapes worksheet for each of the 15 key signatures. Thank you for learning the sight, sound, and feel of the 4 tetrachord shapes, the 7 tetrachord pairs, and special tetrachord fingerings for cello and bass. Please feel free to review this show as needed and to ask your teachers any questions you have. See you next time.